Hello, this is TradeSight's market preview for Thursday, February 21st, 2013. Hope you're having a good trading week. Market finally rolled over late in the day on Wednesday after the minutes from the last Fed meeting came out. Been a fairly dull session up until that point. We did fill the gap from Friday's close to Tuesday's open. Remember that Monday was a holiday. Came back down and filled that gap in the afternoon and kept going lower. Just look at the Nasdaq 100 index. We were watching this the last few days. Finally a move. This is the biggest move of the year so far. Been a very strange year. I mean, January is so flat for the Nasdaq, flatter than I've ever seen a whole month, and then that stayed into the first week of February. Then we get a little gap up and then dead flat for about 7-8 trading days. So here we are now. We've finally headed down. We've filled this gap also on the Nasdaq side from the gap up back around February 6th. So those gaps are filled. It was a downward day. There's a 13 sell signal that's been in place here on this index for a while. We flip you over to the S&P 500, which was a little more positive over the last month. Obviously, the broad market doing better than the Nasdaq. And here's a look. We didn't get the 12 signal that we were looking for from the seeker because the day was such a downward day. In fact, if I put it into projection mode, you can see we were 7 bars up in a new setup phase, and today's downward move violates the 4-bar look back, so when I go to projection mode, we lose that count. That's actually okay. I'd like to get a clean 13 sell signal. At that point, that's going to require heading up for a couple days here. Otherwise, we're rolling over without that. The other thing to remember, though, we looked at this last night, is if we go look at the weekly chart of the S&P, we did have a 13 sell signal in place. We were playing with that risk line. Friday's close will be determined where this bar closes versus the risk line. If we close underneath it, that's still resistance. And at that point, it's going to be almost impossible to get a daily chart Seeker 13 without a little bit of a pullback and then a turn back up. At any rate, still fighting the battle here. We do have this 13 sell signal in place on the weekly, and I think that's significant. You don't get those very often. So, matter of fact, if you look at the one back over here in 2011, we had the 13 sell signal. We later came up to test the risk line, even breached it intra-week and closed below it, and that was the high of the year, essentially. So here we are again, potentially the same thing happening. Once that happens, we'll be watching this trend line. There's a very obvious trend line here in the markets to watch. We'll be watching that. Also, this red line here is a static trend line of this 9-bar move, 9-bar setup phase that led to this 13 up. These will all be lines and levels that come into play if we do roll. But you know, still, this may be a first day down. It was news driven. There was nothing exciting. Let me show you the futures on the S&P and go to a 5-minute chart. And as you can see, there was nothing really exciting going on until late in the session. By the way, this is Monday's futures action, which they just opened the market for about an hour and a half. So this was Friday's close right here. So we gapped up Tuesday, coming back from the holiday, ran up a little bit Tuesday, rolled over on Wednesday today, and as you can see, it was pretty dull the first hour. Then we headed lower, pretty dull over lunch, and then the minutes came out of the last Fed meeting. So this right here got us on the news, got us the gap fill right after that, the gap fill to Friday's close at 15.1750 or so. And then we headed even lower in the last hour of play, really accelerated. Nice day for us with some shorts in Amazon in the afternoon and stuff like that. Overall, really nice trading session, although it was a little slow to start. Not sure what it means for tomorrow. Obviously, we got a lot of news in the morning. We got CPI, we got a lot of data 30 minutes into the market. That could really get things moving. So hoping for tomorrow to be really the better trading day of the week, Thursday to be the better trading day of the week. But we shall see. Also wanted to pull up real quick the Comer tool on this 5-minute ES chart, just because I think that it's got an interesting thing that you can see here since we started trading this week. Instead of using the Seeker, the 5-minute chart, we prefer the Comer. This is kind of interesting. Remember, the 13 is the sell signal. So here is the setup phase, and then the 13 sell signal right at the close on Monday, and we've rolled over ever since there. So that's about it. Not much different from yesterday's lookout at the market. We're still got to play out sort of the rest of this week in that weekly chart on the S&P and the 13 signals themselves. But we are obviously at a very critical juncture in the market with these signals popping up across the board on daily and weekly charts. That's not exactly common to see that. So we got to expect that something's potentially going on here. keep our eye on the ball, make sure we've got market direction in place before we take any stocks and futures trades. Have a good day on Thursday.